It's now my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. One of the privileges that I have at the Chamber is to lead our West Coast Leadership Program. And through that, I've had the opportunity to meet Dave Tebo, as well as to hear him present several times during our Education Day. And I can tell you that you are in for a treat today. I don't know that I've ever met someone more passionate about his students, about his school district, and about their current and future success. In fact, we had a number of people out of last year's class that literally put their house on the market so that they could move to Hamilton to be a part of Dave's school district. Dave definitely thinks outside the box, and you're going to hear that from him today. So it's my privilege to welcome Dave Tebo.
Am I on? No, I'm on. Now I'm right. That was my mistake. I make a lot of those, so I apologize ahead of time for anything that I may say. I told my wife I apologize for being me, and she forgave me for that. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I titled what I'm going to talk about, thinking big and trying to be great. When they reached out and said, hey, our topic is think big, being great, I said, that's great, except I think my wife would object to the being great part. So I made it trying, and we'll see where we go from there. I want to talk a little bit about education, but you're not educators, so I don't want to bore you. But I want to draw some parallels that I think fit between the work that we're doing in Hamilton and in education and the work that you do day to day out in the greater world. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit about what was and is and what needs to be, and how I have been able to and had the opportunity and the pleasure to lead in a place that they've given me some latitude to think big and to think outside the box and to build some things that don't look like traditional school. But to talk about how outside of the box some of what we're doing is, I want to frame things for you. I want to set the stage. We currently live in a space where our learning, K-12 and higher ed, is pretty traditional. It's based on a model that's built off the industrial age, and I won't get into all of that. We do a really good job of sorting and separating kids. We test them and turn them into a number, and really what we do in that is miss the essence of a child and what it really is that we want to bring out of them to make them into what they can be in the future. We need to move to a conceptual age where learning is flat. All of you in your endeavors and the places that you are learn differently all the time. You don't sit in desks in rows. You don't take standardized tests to figure out whether or not you get to stay around in your company for another year. But we do that to kids, and so we have to change that. And to do that, we have to unthink some of the things that happen. So as I sit and think about what it is that you're tasked with, you have to be what your customer wants you to be or needs you to be. But you have to have a compelling case for the why. We have to do the same thing. I'm trying to prove why we need to be something different for our kids. This is not my word. Nausthesia is a word that was created by an author, and I'm in the middle of here, I'm blanking. Jamie Vollmer has made this word up and talked about it. And you probably are wondering, why are these two crazy faces? So it's a mix of nostalgia and amnesia. How many of you went to school? Raise your hands. How many of you know school? Yeah. So you're like, well, I don't know, he's talking a little different. Maybe I don't know school, right? I'm here to tell you that what you think of school, you have an affliction called nausthesia. You remember it with nostalgia. You remember the good stuff. And you have amnesia around the things that sucked. Okay? And a lot of it did. It's the reality of what it is. And so you are coming to listen to a guy talk about how to innovate and think big and think outside the box, and you are rooted and framed in what school was. You're sitting here because you were either successful in school or you figured out how to be successful in spite of school. I'm the superintendent who learned how to be successful in spite of school. If I showed you, and I've done it in some presentations, if you heard me talk, if I showed you my report card from high school, you would laugh at me, because that's not the typical report card of a successful person. I was extremely average. My favorite class, physical education. Not math, not ELA, not social studies, not science, not anything that my father, who was a superintendent, and my mother, who was a high school teacher, expected me to like so I could follow in their footsteps. I did follow in their footsteps, but not in the way that they thought I would. So we have to acknowledge that we have some preconceived notions about school for what I'm going to say to make sense to you today. I think to think big, I believe you have to have courage. You have to be willing to do the difficult thing in spite of people who want to put you and your organization back inside that box of what was, what's comfortable, what's safe, what feels good, what we remember, and become what it is that you can be. I've got a few talking points. 1.6 and 24, 9 years ago, I walked into Hamilton Community Schools. I had a $24 million budget, and I was structurally deficit $1.6 million. Let that set for a minute. If you were running your business and you had a $24 million and a structural deficit of $1.6 million, you weren't going to be in business for long unless you can solve that. Now, I can't create a product that gets you to buy something more. The only thing I can do is get more kids. And I have to have the scalability that if I get more kids, I have to do right by them very, very well. So I can't ramp up quickly. I can't bring another production line online quickly. I have to go out and find phenomenal teachers, which is really, really hard to do in a day and age in which education is devalued, and we sit around and take a lot of shots at our educators about what they aren't and what they can't do. So that's difficult. Today, I have a $34 million budget, and I'm $200,000 in the black in 9 years. I don't say that to say, ooh, look at Dave Tebo. I say that to say, I had to think outside the box. I had to think big to become what we are today from what we were, and I had to honor a very traditional community that was change averse. Because empowering the 15 to 25% upsets to 75 to 80%, 85%. Let me talk a little bit about that. We have an acceptable rate of loss in a school setting. If you look at graduation rates right now, if I was to say to you that your graduation rate was 85%, it's a pretty good graduation rate. We don't accept that here on the west coast of Michigan, but across the state, there are schools that would love to have an 85% graduation rate. But when you decide that your challenge is each child has the opportunity to thrive, you have to change the game. Because the system is built to sort and separate. In our system, 15 to 25% of our kids not graduating ready for life is an acceptable amount of loss in the school world and nationally. We'll look at that and go, oh, they're doing okay. I won't settle and I won't sleep until it's 100%. But when you start to talk about the marginalized kid, the kid who doesn't look like, sound like, smell like you, talk like you, behave like you, that you can't consequence into a change in behavior, you have to work differently with that kid. And as soon as you work differently with that kid, now you've made it easier. Now it's softer. Now your expectations are different. Because the 75 to 85% can do it the way that we've done it. But that's not enough. We need to get to all of them, each and every one of them. And so we have to create things that don't look like traditional school. So some of you in the room are going, yeah, but I was successful and I did it that way and I worked hard and I did it. Yep, and that worked for you. And that's going to work for a lot of our kids. But I'm not here to get a lot of them. I'm here to get all of them. Equal means equal. There's winners and losers. If we all get the same thing, the kids who have things outside of school are going to win, and the kids who don't have things outside of school are going to lose. So equal can't be equal. We need to build a school system. I need to build a machine that says we will be fair to kids. We'll give the kid what they need when they need it. Not every kid gets the same thing. How many of you have kids? How many of you have multiple kids? Are those of you with multiple kids, each kid's the same, right? Right? You got one, what you did with one, you did the same thing with the second one. They both are perfectly the same thing. Right? Makes it easy. Parenting's easy because each kid is the exact same. Once you figure it out with the first one, right? My son Brady, the poor kid, we screwed it up with him all the way along, but now we've got it right with Eva, right? We're in a good spot. No way. First one's the easy one. She's going to kill somebody someday. And it might be me, right? But I sit and my wife says, well, we did the same thing. We had the same environment. No. Each kid is beautifully and wonderfully made. They're each wonderfully unique. And if we can sit here and laugh about a joke that he makes about our kids being different, think about the differences that walk through my door every day when I have 3,000 kids or 5,000 kids in Holland. Or I don't even know how many Tom's got at West Ottawa. He's got a bunch. He's got a lot more than me, right? But the diversity there is amazing. And if we do one size fits all, we're not going to meet their needs. As a leader, I had to think big in terms of my team. It's very easy for me as a leader when I'm trying to create a system that individualizes for every kid, and I have some very, very strong thoughts about education. If you ever want to talk one-on-one, I'll be happy to do it with you. Today's not the day, but I'll walk through that with you. I'd be happy to. You don't become the 32-year-old superintendent without a big ego. I've got an ego. I've had to put it in check. One of the biggest lessons I've learned when thinking big was I needed a team that was an echo chamber. It would be very, very easy for me to go out and hire more people who looked like and sounded like and said, that's a great idea, Dave. Yep, that's a great idea, Dave. Yep, that's a great idea, Dave. Yep, that's a great idea, Dave. And then we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And who's to say that I've got it all figured out? Like I said, I've got some strong ideas. I read a lot, got a lot of research. I know a lot of people way smarter than me. This room is way smarter than me. I work with a lot of you in different settings and different places to help our kids get a leg up. If you want to think big, you can't create an echo chamber around you and your leadership team. And it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it. I challenge you to think about who you put around you. Because if you put people around you that are echoing what you say, you're missing opportunities to grow your business or to take that next step, to think big. We can't think big alone. We can't. We need help. And you can't be afraid of failure. Easy to say, tough to do. How many of you are the boss? How many of you raise your hands are the boss? How many of you work for a board? Okay, so a few of you can recognize what I'm saying. I work for 7 people who have nostalgia. It's the reality. They all went to school. They all know how to do school. They all have kids, and they want. I have a phenomenal, phenomenal board of education, an absolutely amazing group of people who have given me the ability to fail and to fail forward. 16 months, 18 months into my job. I've been in Hamilton for 9 years now. It'll be 9 years January 1. 16 to 18 months in, I was going to be fired. I came in, I said, you are a good school district. You can be great. We need to change to meet the needs of each and every child. And I sold myself for what I am. I'm a change manager. I'm a transformational leader at my core. That's what I believe. I'm also a servant leader, but I lead with transformation. And they said, yes, we need that. We're ready. Come on. They hired me. You're on board. And I started to change, and they said, whoa, 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 whoa. We didn't want that change. We didn't want to do that. Okay. All right. Pump the brakes. For somebody who goes 100 miles an hour, 100 days a week, let's go. I can't slow down. There isn't a slow in me, but I had to find it. I had to use that failure to realize that at the time in that organization's development and my maturation as a leader, we didn't fit. I failed in recognizing that when I walked in the door. So I had to stop and pause, and I needed to become the leader that the organization needed me to be, and I needed to cultivate relationships with my board so that I had the permission to try new things, and that they knew if I failed, I would be big enough to say, I screwed that up. And here's what we're going to do to fix it. And I had to work with them to understand that if I fail, or when I fail, because it wasn't a matter of if, it was when, that they would be understanding enough to know that I would admit it, and I would talk about where we're going to go. Each of us at times wishes we could build a better past. Not an option. At least not now. One of our kids might figure out time travel by the time that we're done, and maybe we could go back and build a better past. It's a little thing for sci-fi movies right now, but at some point the things that we talk about in sci-fi movies become the reality for our kids. We have to be able to fail. You have to be willing to try. If we continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, definition of insanity. And that's really, really hard to do in a space that's status quo, in a space that has defined itself as what it is and holds on with a veracity that you've never seen to be what it is. And some of that is because of the people sitting in this room. And I'm not placing blame. I'm just being truthful. We all hold on to what it is that we used to be at the expense of what our kids can be. If I put you in desks and rows and seats and I sat here and talked to you for any more than 25 minutes, actually, after about 10 minutes, some of you check out on me. I wear kind of cool shoes, and I make jokes, and I self-deprecate every once in a while, so you laugh. That's just my way of making sure I can reset you, so that maybe something that I say resonates, right? Like, this isn't how we would tell people to learn, right? But we do this to kids all day long. And we're talking about kids who have more energy than any of us have, who want to know why. We're not going to put them back in a box. Because I said so. How many parents again? Because I said so. How often does that work? Doesn't work with my kids. They need a compelling reason. And we're not putting that toothpaste back in that tube. Society has changed, whether we like it or not. We have to be willing to think outside the box. We have to be willing to think big to meet the needs of your consumers, of the world around us, and for me to meet the needs of my students. We have to get over ourselves. I spend a lot of time getting over myself. My wife's great at helping me with that. Shut up, get over yourself. Yep, gotcha, okay, no, yep, let's move on. And I say that because if you want to think big, it goes along with my echo chamber. You have to find partners. You have to find partners that do different things than you do to help you become what you can be. I have been blessed to have some of the best partners that any guy who leads a school system could ask for. Is Travis Williams in the room? He's probably not here today. He had such a big party last night and showing stuff off. Rumor has it I was on a video. I'm sorry I ruined that if you were there. But Travis, I'm glad he's not here because I can talk about him freely now. The Outdoor Discovery Center is inside of Hamilton Community Schools, and I can tell you tons of stories about the work that we've done, whether or not you have kids that go to Little Hawks Preschool, or you're like the gentleman who was talking this morning and I overheard about how hard and crazy it is to get into Little Hawks. Like that, to hear that warms my heart, right? Like when we think about trying to think big, so I came to Hamilton, example of thinking big, I came to Hamilton and I looked around and I said, we don't have any preschool. There's no preschool in Hamilton. Why in the world are we not running preschool? And they said, oh, it's all co-opted and there's different places and here's a not-for-profit that runs a preschool. And I was going, okay, that's great and I trust a lot of people, but don't I want to have control over as much of the raw product as I can, as early as I can, to put it into the system so I can get it? My board said, no, don't touch that. You can't do that. We don't do preschool. Okay, we don't do preschool. At the same time, Travis Williams, I meet Travis and he says to me, he said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. What if we had a nature-based preschool? And I nerd out like, yes, what if we have a nature-based preschool? That would be so sweet. And then in the back of my head, I've got a soundtrack running of my board telling me, you shall not do preschool, right? Like, I've got this inner monologue fighting my brain going, oh, we can do this. And I thought, what if I themed it? What if my argument to my board was, I'm not taking product away from the co-ops and the other preschools. What if we said, we know they're out of the 200 kids that I get in a kindergarten class, 100 of them are coming with a preschool experience. The other 100 are coming without it. So I know kids aren't getting it. So my argument became, let's reach the unreached population. Let's go out, let's find a niche. Let's do a nature-based preschool. I now run my own preschool, and I also was smart enough and big enough to get out of Travis's way and to give him Little Hawks. We built it together from the ground up. He and I and a group of people smarter than the two of us sat in a room and we dreamed this thing up. And then I, as an educational entity, gave it a home and an umbrella and a financial structure for us to give it lift. And then it became something that my system, the traditional system of school, was clipping its wings. I couldn't ramp up to expand as fast as he could. I have to go out and bond. I have to go out and have a big vote. I'm 2 to 3 years from being able to build what he has today. He can, as a nonprofit, go out and raise money and ramp up and build it faster. I had to give up my baby so it could become what it needed to be. And I had to trust my partner. And he's built it into one of the coolest, best preschools there is, not in the state of Michigan, but across the country. I could have choked that out. I could have gotten in the way of it becoming what it is. We also partner, we build Stream School. It's a multi-disciplinary setting, and it's all based on experiential learning, and I could talk about that for another half an hour, but I won't. My point is you have to have partners. The ISD is a phenomenal partner for us. Saugatuck Schools and I have partnered, and you say, Saugatuck, you guys are right next to each other. Don't you compete for kids? Yes. Oh, wait, no. I don't compete for kids. We create a product that is as good as anybody else does, and if you want to come to Hamilton, we want you here. But I don't compete, because I believe that if you want to go to Saugatuck and you're looking at the things that Saugatuck does well, good for you, go to Saugatuck. If you want to go to West Ottawa, go to West Ottawa. If you want to go to Holland, go to Holland. If you want to go to Holland Christian, go to Holland Christian. Yep. Public school superintendent just sat in front of you and says, I don't care where your kids go, because each of you has uniquely, beautifully, wonderfully made kids, and you have different reasons for why you send your kids where you send. I will sit here and tell you, I think we do it as good, if not better, than anybody else. And if you want to be a Hawkeye, come join us. That's my one little public service plug. Okay? But I use that to say, I'm better, we're better, because we partner. Because I don't have the capacity to do all the things that we do. We have Prep for Success, and some of you in this room have been a part of our Prep for Success work, and I say thank you to all of you. That partnership is creating programs for kids where they start to understand what it means to work for you someday. To continue to get an education, to grow, to thrive, to be well, and to come back and work in this phenomenal place. So you have the talent you need for us to be the best community in the state and in the country. But we can't do that alone. I can't do that alone. I need you, you need me, we need each other, we need to get over that, and we need to talk about what school can be when we think big and we talk about maybe someday being great. I got a few minutes and I want to show you this. My last little plug. So, schools need to market themselves. I'm not worried about marketing, I'm working about showing off what we can do. We have an issue. We have lots of issues. I have lots of issues. That's neither here nor there. We have an issue. Not very many people want to do this thing called drive a bus. How many of you would sign up to get in a big yellow bus, put 50 to 60 screaming kids on it, navigate the roads of West Michigan, and get kids safely from school to home and from home to school? How many want to sign up? Look at all those hands. Good, I got applicants. No. So we have a problem. We can't find bus drivers. I got to think outside the box. I have 2 kids that graduated a year and a couple months ago who are trying to start their own business. They're videographers, and they're good. They're great. So I go out and I say, hey, I got 2 kids trying to start their own business. They graduated from us. I can help them thrive. What do I do? So I went to the board and I said, hey, I got some money that I've got some flexibility with. Are you guys okay with me going out and putting these 2 kids on our team? Yep, I got a phenomenal communications. Jeremy's over there. I said, Jeremy, you go work with these 2 kids, mentor these kids, start building us videos, start showing off what we do. Great stuff. And then I said, I had a bus transportation director who said, I can't find drivers. I need drivers. Okay. Jeremy, get the kids. Go build me a video. You know what I don't have? A bus driver issue anymore. That is outside the box. That is hacking a solution using the people around you that are way smarter than I am and more talented than I am to get to something that I needed to solve. I had to think great. I had to think big, and our team is great. I was going to talk about balance, and I'll talk about it quickly. One of the other things I think everybody needs to understand is that you need balance. If you're going to think big and you want to be great, you have to find balance. I've spent 12, 13 years now being a superintendent, and 2 years ago I decided to stop killing myself and find some balance. For a long time, I felt like I am, and I will still say this, I work as hard as anybody else in my system because I'm the leader, and if I expect it from them, I have to expect it from myself. But I'm better today than I ever have at finding balance. The running joke used to be that I didn't sleep, and I would tell you that I didn't. I slept about 4 hours a night. I was up until midnight, 1 o'clock, reading, researching, trying to protect myself from the slings and arrows that came when you do things differently. And I was burning myself out. I had to find balance. I had to give myself the permission and the grace to, number 1, be dad, to number 2, be a husband, and then number 3, be the leader of a community that's doing phenomenal things for kids. But if you want to be great, you've got to take care of yourself. You have to find balance. With that, it's been my pleasure to stand in front of you for a little bit, hopefully make you laugh a little, hopefully give you some insight, maybe challenge you to think big. And at the end of the day, I want all of you to be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. We've got a few moments here for some Q&A time with Dave. I'm here to see who's got the first question. Yeah, Michael, let me give you the microphone. If you would stand up.
Dave, just talk to us a little bit about how you've gotten your colleagues to come around and kind of believe what it is that you're talking to us about. 9 years ago, they weren't in agreement with you. How did you get from there to here, and what is the feeling now?
Yeah. So at that point, I had Ron Eating isn't in the room, but Ron Eating is was a member of my board and is a member of the Ottawa ISD Board of Education. And as much as sometimes I frustrated Ron because what I was building was different than what he was used to at school. He was a teacher in Hamilton, bleeds black and gold. He cared about me enough to say, you need a mentor. You need somebody that can help you do this. And so he connected me with Karen McPhee, who was here before Pete was at the ISD. And Karen and I started to talk on a regular basis. And it was I liken it to what maybe a trainer has to do to a horse. Like, you got to break him, right? Like, I just wanted to run, right? And I needed somebody to come in and break me. Like, stop, don't, right? But I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, Dave, I know you want to go fast, but you need to go slow so you can go fast. And so I spent a lot of time taking that to heart and then saying, okay, to me this makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to everybody, so how can I start to present this in multiple ways and go small, slow, and that's, so the idea of like the example of Little Hawks, we did things in these outward spaces that we didn't say, hey parents, guess what, we're going to completely revolutionize what your kids do every day, and then you guys freak out and go, I don't know that I want my kid to do that, right? Because it's different, and you go, well, this last one worked. So we had to go real small, slow. We had to kind of build proof of concept. When you're in change management, I call it painting the picture of possible. You have to paint the picture of what's possible so that people can see it, because asking people to take leaps of blind faith with their kids, that doesn't go over so well, right? So we had to go small. We had to do some little things. So I had to go slow to go fast, and I really had to build capacity inside of our team. Great question.
Next question.
Morning, Dave.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, you go first.
Yeah, Pete.
This will be okay. Dave, you used the word failure, but you didn't use a word that I know is important to you. You didn't use the word risk. Mm-hmm. And while Dave might strike you as someone who does some things kind of off the cuff, I disagree. Dave takes very thoughtful risks. So now I'm going to ask you to look around the room. What do we have? 250 community business leaders. What can these people do to help make it safer for you to take those thoughtful risks on behalf of kids?
Great question, and thank you for putting on that T for me. Well, yeah, what you can do is engage with us, engage with all of us in this educational space, because if we're going to change this narrative, we have to get to the parents. You are parents, you employ parents, you work with parents, and we need to get to the point where the risk is being able to answer the why for why kids need to do what we're going to do. Like I could go on the soapbox of 200 years ago, the Committee of 10 decided that these four, areas, reading, writing, math, science, social studies, were the core subjects, right? Like that's, and we still hold on to that 200 years later. Like 10 really rich white guys all decided all of this, right? So we should change that. But and back then you didn't have to answer the question of why, because the why is because I said so. Well, that doesn't work now. So we have to make a compelling why. So when a kid says, where am I going to use Algebra 1? I need you to help me show kids where in the world do we use Algebra 1. And then we need to say, look, parents, it's okay when they learn it not out of a textbook with rote memorization. Because it's one thing to be able to memorize and regurgitate something for a standardized test. It's another thing for us to take content and skills, put it together in context so that a kid has it forever. Has it forever. That's a different thing. So we need partners. You can have conversations with the people in your businesses and say, look, school doesn't have to look like what it used to. And if you want to go down the road of looking at the data, we still do data well too. Like our scores are good. I can play that game. But I'll tell you, you sit with one of our kids who walks out at the end and asks them questions about the skills that they have and what they want to do. At the end of the day, I want them to be well. I don't care what that means in terms of next steps. We're all going to have to continue to learn. And we need to learn with you and with the people who work for you. All of us need to be learners so that the community continues to increase.
Thank you. And we'll do the last question right here.
You talk about not having echo chambers. What is it that you look for in your leaders adding to your team?
At the end of the day, I look for three things: humble, hungry, and smart. And then I look for people who have different backgrounds than me, right? That I want to have people that have different ethnic backgrounds, that come from different levels of socio-economic wellness, all of different places. I want to have different genders. I want to have my team. Like I struggle right now. I don't have a female elementary principal, and it just eats at me because I feel like that's a void that we have. I have some really strong women on my team, but I don't have it in that elementary space. Now the flip side of that is good because I have a lot of female elementary teachers, and so I have a male presence in the elementary building, but I don't have that female lens. Rhonda Klumparens was a principal here in Holland and came to us. She was just a godsend for us in that room because she had the experience of Holland. She was a strong female leader. She could bring perspective that the rest of the team didn't have. And so I'm looking at, and the way that I hire, and I'll just real quick, is when I look at administrators, I take the pool, I identify 6 to 7 that I think could fit, and I talk to all of them first. And I narrow that down, and then I take 2 or 3 to the team so that I know that these people have what they need. That way, if I give it to the team and the team picks them, I learned really early on, I took 6 people out of this big team, and they said, we like her. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going to have to go that route, right? Like, culturally, it was difficult, and then that just didn't work out. So I flipped it around, and I do the screening up front and then bring it. But I'm always looking for, I look at myself, I do a lot of stuff with strengths and understanding myself as a person, and I go, okay, these are the holes that I have in my leadership. This is my blind spot. I need somebody to fill that blind spot, and then I try to go out and find that. And I look at my team, too, and say, okay, there's a blind spot there, there's a blind spot there. How do I help people do that? Because colleague to colleague, that's easier sometimes than the boss telling you that you have a blind spot. Like, I'm pretty good at softening that and, Jedi mind tricking them into, the growth edge. But at the same time, it's very easy to have a colleague be able to have that conversation versus the boss sometimes.
Good. Well, thank you, Dave. And audience, let's thank Dave one more time for a great presentation.